Mark Thompson Show.
I've made you wait long enough, Courtney. I'm very sorry for the wait.
Yeah.
In the luxurious green room here at the Mark Thompson Show. Lovely to have you here.
Down
How
the
about
hall.
it for Courtney, everyone?
Hi.
She is the love of my life.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, you are mine.
What can I tell you?
It's the sweetest.
I know. That's so nice.
You know, Courtney, before you start your murder, Bean, our pal Bean, contacted me over the weekend. And he said, Mark, I occasionally watch your show, really enjoy it. He's a broadcaster. He's a legendary broadcaster and a great friend for many years. We kind of started our career at the same time. He's a multiple Marconi winner, all this stuff. He said, I know the Fran Drescher was, impassioned in her remarks. And as she was speaking, all I could think about was, these are great drops for the Mark Thompson Show.
They are.
So I don't know.
I cannot believe it.
All of a sudden I feel like, yeah.
Why are you doing this?
There you go.
Yeah.
They really.
And
What are you doing?
I'm
awesome.
just saying, I think they may find their way in.
You people
wow.
are crazy.
Yeah. I mean, if there's any more appropriate place to drop those,
Yeah,
the Murder Mystery Monday.
yeah. I think it may be. Anyway, all right.
I cannot believe it.
Yes, it's it. All right. So, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I will update. I've seen it in the chat, and I will update the story that is truly bizarre that broke over the weekend. That's the missing Alabama woman, Carly Russell, returned home. I will get to that in a second, but first we have the terrific production element. Albert, this is Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Welcome to Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
And for Courtney, everybody, how about
Thank you.
it?
Thank you.
Courtney, this woman in Alabama, her name is Carly Russell. She returned home alive and safe Saturday night. She had made a 911 call that a child was only wearing a diaper and along the side of the road. And she makes this report to cops. They show up, and there is no toddler there, and there is no Carly there. They find her car and her belongings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is all that stuff where, everybody's on the lookout for her, and they make a media appeal. And then she shows up home this weekend. And again, there are not a lot of details as to what happened. Police have not been able to locate anyone with Carly Russell from the time she left where she picked up the food, which is what she was doing, to the time she made the 911 call that I just described. They believe the child was used as bait. The Russells believe this. Her family believe this. The child was used as bait in order to lure Carly out of the car.
Yeah.
But we don't know anything more. And there is nothing more to know. It is an ongoing mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even know that anybody was harmed in any way. She's not talking.
Wow.
So we'll watch that. But I wanted to,
Yeah.
it was asked, and it does sort of, it's Courtney adjacent in terms of its interest.
Yeah. Did anyone die?
Not yet. No. So you're right. It's not technically your area.
No, but
Courtney-
I read about it a little bit, but
Until somebody dies, you're not really on it.
I mean, yeah, I might tune in a little bit.
Well, because
but-
your inbox overflows with people with the other stuff. So I get it.
Well, it was a big weekend for the story that we're going to cover.
Okay,
And
so go for it.
I'm sure that everybody knows what story this is, and that is the Long Beach serial killer. And he was arrested last week in Manhattan at his architecture firm.
He's an architect.
He is an architect.
Was, as it turns out, an architect of what?
Death.
Yes.
Actually,
Yeah.
that does play into the murders because he was very meticulous, which is why it took so long to find him. But when I talk about the evidence against him, it is a little bit of palm to the forehead, because he was doing things that really he should have been found a long time ago. So for those unfamiliar with the Long Island serial killer, these are killings that happened between roughly 1996 and 2011, and there are 18 bodies. Now, not all bodies
Jeez.
are attributed to him. He was arrested for the murder of 3 women last week, but there have been 18 bodies found in Gilgo Beach.
And where is that? That's in New York?
Yeah.
On Long Island, New York?
Yeah, for those watching, if you go down a little bit, there's a map of where Gilgo Beach is in relationship to Long Island, in relationship to just one more. In relationship, there we go, in relationship to the suspect's house. So I'm going to talk about how this started. So on May 2nd of 2010, Shannon Gilbert makes a panicked call to 911 at 4:50 in the morning. And she is fleeing a client's home, and she says, he's trying to kill me. And she goes from door to door, knocking and screaming. She is an escort working on Craigslist or Backpage, and she's been hired by a John, who she calls and says is trying to kill her. She goes missing. Now, with Shannon Gilbert missing on May 2nd, 2010, the police begin to look for Shannon. And on December 11th, 2010, they find the first of 4 bodies in Gilgo Beach, and that is Melissa Barthelemy. And her remains are found on December 11th, and then Megan Waterman, Amberlynn Costello, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes' remains are all found on December 13th.
In the same beach that we're seeing?
In the same beach that we're seeing. So if you go up, yeah, here's a map, and then here's a map as well of the Gilgo 4. Now, this case has a lot to unpack because there are so many bodies and it's over a large amount of time. So I'm going to focus on the Gilgo 4, but there are references both in the story and in the visuals to some of the other murders. So, yeah, okay. So Rex Heuermann is arrested last week, and he lives in Massapequa. I'm going to say it incorrectly.
Right.
Billy Baldwin actually tweeted that he went to high school with Rex, and Rex was sort of notoriously kind of a weird guy, as they always are, right?
Wow.
He lives in Massapequa with his wife, Asa Everup, and also a daughter and then a stepson. And he lives in the house, actually, that he was raised in, and the house is in shambles. So it's a little weird because he makes, he's an architect in Manhattan, but he goes into Manhattan every day, and he lives in this house in Massapequa. So they find him because of a pizza crust that I'll get into, and also tracking this burner phone that he has, and several different things that he was doing with the burner phone that ultimately connect him to the murders. But he's generally a family man. His wife is from Iceland, and every time a murder happened, his wife was out of town. So there's a connection back to, his wife not being there and the murders taking place. So the 4 bodies are found. The first woman is Maureen Brainerd Barnes. She's 25. She's last seen July 9th, 2007. She is an escort. She is on Craigslist. He hires her there. And all of the...
he takes her to the beach. Well, I don't know.
I don't know where he took her,
Yeah,
but he ultimately
disposed of the body there at the beach.
on the beach. Now, the reason they found the bodies in Gilgo Beach is because, unfortunately, that tends to be where people leave bodies off of parkways. And so they took a cadaver dog, as I mentioned, on December 2010, and that's where they found those first 4 bodies. But Melissa Brainerd Barnes, she was an escort. She was 25. All of these 4 victims are under 5 feet tall. And Rex Heuermann was 6'6". He was a very large man. So
he was able to physically dominate them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And serial killers tend to have a signature, and his signature was strangulation of the victims. and then he would wrap the bodies in a burlap sack. Now, when I talked about 18 bodies being found, and he also tended to find escorts or sex workers in their 20s. Now, the 18 bodies included a male, a toddler, and other women who did not fit the profile of a 20-year-old sex worker. So they can't attribute all of the bodies to him, and not all of the bodies had the burlap sack or the strangulation.
Wow.
The next victim is Melissa Barthélemy. She was 24. She lived in New York. She was actually living in the Bronx. She goes missing, and her family starts to get calls about her death. And the man who's calling the family says, "I killed your sister. I killed your daughter. She's going to rot." And this, of course, is an alert to the family and disconcerting to the family. And so the family go to the police.
Jeez, what a twisted guy this guy is.
I know. The third victim is Megan Waterman. She's 22. She's actually from Maine. She goes and meets a client. She is never seen again. She was actually a victim of sex trafficking. She's the only victim who was over the height of 5 feet. She was 5'5". And then the last victim is Amber Lynn Costello of the Gilgo 4 murders. Amber Lynn Costello is 27. She was actually a very bright young girl and good student, but she got into drugs at a very early age. And so she's killed. She goes missing in September of 2010. And she is 4'11". So he was very much overpowering these poor women. There's a lot of evidence linking him to these crimes. If I go over a very quick timeline, I mean, the first bodies are found in 1996 and 1997. In 2000, more bodies are found. In 2003, more bodies are found. In 2007, more bodies are found. Someone's last seen, and phone calls are made to a victim's family. In 2009, a victim goes missing and calls are made to that victim's family. In 2010, the first of these Gilgo 4 murder victims are found. In 2011,
so in 2010, don't they have DNA then in 2011 or no?
Yes,
okay.
And that is partially how he is found. So 2011, 16, and 2020, and then in 2023, he's arrested. So that's the timeline that we're looking at. Now, here is some of the evidence that's connecting him to these murders. First, there was a belt, and the belt says HM or WH, depending on how you're looking at the belt. There's actually an image of the belt here in the visuals.
Albert,
and
please.
Thank you. And so there's evidence from the belt that connects him to one of the victims, and that's Megan Waterman. So there's some DNA that's left there. Actually, part of the DNA that was left on the belt is one of his wife's hairs. So they actually take some of his wife's DNA and connect him to that. Yeah.
Now, how do they know it's his wife's DNA? How do they get the DNA to match it?
It was from a water bottle. So they had several. They had several warrants, so they were actually watching him for quite some time, and that's also how he was. Mm-hmm.
And he was a suspect to be watched then because of
cell phone data. So every single crime that took place happened from a burner phone.
Okay.
So he had a burner phone, and through that cell phone data, they were able to find who bought it and connect him to the murders.
So the burner phone really kicked the door open to the other things, watching his wife, watching him, and then ultimately getting this DNA. Where did they get the DNA?
So the DNA for him, if you go down, was taken from a pizza crust that he left. So they were following him. He left a pizza crust in a box. The police went and got it, and that connected him also to some DNA from one of the victims.
Say what I'll tell you, these cops are good. These detectives are committed to this.
Yes.
I mean, they really had to surveil this guy and then find this moment where they could pull his DNA off of something.
It is. And he was, I mean, I don't have a burner phone. I know you have a burner phone.
I'd like a lot of burner phones, to be honest.
But, I mean, he had his... First of all, he was making phone calls on on the train into the city from Long Island, right? Maybe you don't do that, right? So they were looking for somebody that had a commute from Massapequa to Manhattan.
I see.
Because a lot of the calls were happening from Penn Station.
I see.
Okay. And that included his burner phone and the phones of the victims that he had taken that he was making calls
Sure.
from.
I mean, that's what you look at, right?
He also had a Tinder profile that was connected to, if you guessed his burner phone, you would be correct,
Wow.
under the name Andrew Roberts. And that is where he was soliciting women for sex, also through Craigslist, also through Backpage.
Put a picture of him up again, please, Albert.
He connected his email address to the burner phone and to Tinder. He also did several searches on the internet, including the search, why could law enforcement not trace the calls made by the Long Island serial killer from the phone of the Long Island
That
serial
was his
killer?
search. Yeah.
That was his search. Also, why has he not been caught? So the testing of the wife's DNA came from a water bottle that they had found, as I mentioned
Wow.
earlier, and that connected back to Maureen Bernard Barnes.
So then they apprehend him. They move in.
Yeah, so
Albert, you have the
plainclothes
shot of him being apprehended.
toward the end.
I saw it.
So plainclothes cops go to his architecture firm in Manhattan and they arrest him. You can see how tall he is.
Wow, he's a big
The
dude.
idea that he was overcoming these women who were all under 5 feet tall, who were, almost nearly 100 pounds. It's just awful. Actually, another piece of evidence was one of the women, Amberlynn Costello. She did something to one of her clients, which happened to be him. And so the client left angry, and there were eyewitnesses to this thing that she did, is basically she ripped him off. And the eyewitnesses said he was a very large man driving a Chevrolet Avalanche. And as you can see here, Rex Heuermann is a very large man, and he does have a black Chevy Avalanche.
Wow.
So the eyewitnesses connected to him as well.
Like a Law and Order episode.
Yeah.
One of those Law and Order where you go, wow, they'll never be able to find. Then bam, bam, bam. Starts with the burner phones, and then,
Yeah,
then DNA.
it's incredible. Yeah. So now it's about. Oh, also he cried in police custody, as they all do. But he's of course saying he didn't do it, but they have enough evidence. I'm not sure why it took so long to arrest him. It seems like they've had quite a bit of evidence for some time.
Oh, really? You think?
But
they
it might
should
have been the DNA. I'm hearing from things that I'm reading and listening to, it sounded like it was the DNA from the pizza crust. But this all happened last week. And this is something that has been featured on many TV shows, many podcasts. It certainly has been something that people have been investigating for quite some time.
Police and investigators at his home there in that picture that Albert is on screen.
This is the home that he grew up in, that he lives in.
Yeah.
Yes, it was not well kept.
It's interesting because, as you say, an architect, you usually associate him with or her with
But he owed
kind of
some money. He owed quite a bit of money to the government in taxes. So
see.
he had a $450,000 tax bill that he had not paid.
But he had money for burner phones, and that's the.
I mean, there were images of him going into a phone shop in Midtown Manhattan, getting more minutes for the burner phone. Just buy another burner phone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know where do you buy burner phones? At Albert, where do you buy? Albert knows. I promise you, 100% he knows.
I don't know.
Albert, where do you buy burner phones?
Probably one of those smaller wireless stores, and you could literally just add minutes, like Courtney was talking about what he was doing.
Yeah.
So,
Albert, thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully not the
not that I've
same.
done it before.
But just because you have a burner phone doesn't mean you're going to do something. Why do people get burner phones, Courtney?
I mean, because they don't want to be tracked. So don't put your email on it and don't do searches. And
Well, don't you? If
call
you're going
people from
overseas,
it.
don't you get a burner phone or not?
I don't think now. I think you can get
It
other
used to be.
chips
Now-
and stuff.
now I
yeah.
see. Okay.
But I think that you're trying to maybe hide something or yourself if you're getting a burner phone.
Kim, do you have a burner phone? I feel like, Kim, the answer is no.
Kim does not
You
have a burner
predict no. I
Question
predict
is,
no.
who doesn't have a burner phone?
Oh, wow. No, but honestly,
There
do you
you
have
go.
one or not?
And no, I
you-
don't have a burner phone.
yeah, okay,
Why do
all
I need a
right,
burner
all right.
phone?
Yeah,
I have nothing to
exactly.
hide.
God.
It's
All right.
Yeah.
easier to hide
I'm
your tracks,
tracked,
Mark,
no.
when you have a burner phone, you know?
I mean,
No one's
It's
looking
easier to
for
cover
Yeah.
your tracks, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just,
Um,
so it sounds like he did it, but it's all, I should say, alleged.
Oh,
Right,
because they
because he
just
was
have gotten him, and
just
it's all. But it does
arrested,
sound like
so-
they've got a lot on him.
Yeah.
So, Courtney, that was very interesting and very of the moment. I mean, that just happened this week.
Yeah, it just
So,
happened this week. So
Yeah.
hopefully
And what is
this
his name again? We'll watch this story.
Rex Heuermann.
Heuermann. Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot about him.
Yeah.
When I
Courtney,
was reporting
yeah.
this story on Friday, Courtney, I listened back to the Mark Thompson show, and it sounded like instead of Gilgo Beach with a G, it sounded like I was saying Dildo Beach. So I have to really like hit that G hard in this story coming up.
Well,
You
I
gotta
keep
be
reading it as Gigolo Beach.
Yeah.
I keep adding an I.
Yeah. Well,
What's a guilty
So,
pleasure?
Yeah, there you go. By the way, I would go to both beaches.
yeah. How about that?
They should
Yeah,
call
there's-
it Body
They
Beach. is
sound
what
fun.
They should call it.
Yeah, they should call it Dead Body Beach. Exactly.
Yeah.
Courtney, thank you.
Thank you for
Courtney,
having me.
everybody.
Thank you.
That is
Yes.
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday
Yes,
for
thank
today.
you.
Thank you,
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday on The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.